It's the Line Makers on Sporting News.
We got a big boy for you here. The Line Makers on Sporting News from the South Point Casino in Las Vegas. I'm Brian Blessing with our good buddy Rick Herron. Notre Dame hosting Michigan. The Irish opened 5.5. This game's up to 6. The total on the game is 51. But one thing, Rick, it's a high-profile game to begin with, but Notre Dame is kind of returning to that rarefied air that they've not been in for a long time. Hope these kids aren't reading their press clippings.
Yeah, people jumping on the bandwagon, Brian, especially after the 20-3 win at Michigan State last week. And you know, they've opened with a tough schedule in my mind, having to go to Dublin, and then they come back and they had the close game with Purdue, and then they had the dominant defensive performance at Michigan State last week. Now you got to follow with a total different offense from Michigan State, and Denard Robinson and the spread offense and the way they move it around. And last week it was Le'Veon Bell and Andrew Maxwell who's had some difficulties for Michigan State moving the ball. This is a total different matchup.
And for Notre Dame, let's just talk about the fact that the kid Golson is growing in confidence with each passing week. Of course, he's got Reese behind him, but I think he might be losing that looking over his shoulder mentality. The one thing I talked to you about Michigan, I give them marks after getting throttled by Alabama. They come back, survive against the tough offense to prepare for an Air Force. And last week was nothing but a glorified scrimmage. You know Michigan's been working on this game for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and you have to throw the Alabama game out. I mean, looking at a couple weeks worth of results, Alabama looks head and shoulders above everybody else. My question in the game is, looking back at the history with these two teams, they play close games. Now, I think there's a little bit of value getting 5.5 or 6, although I think you can get 6 later in the week just because the public loves Notre Dame and there are so many backers out there.
And I'll throw it right back at you on the same scenario. Not only are they close games, they're dramatic games that come down to the last drive inside the 10-second mark. We get the winning score. But the other thing, Ricky, these are historically high-scoring games. And I think we always warn the bettors, don't go nuts with what you saw last. And we see Notre Dame in a low-scoring win against Michigan State. I think the total's a little light. I like the over 51.
Well, this is a perfect example, Brian, of what you just said. Don't go nuts with what you saw last. You look at Notre Dame, and they gave up 10 to Navy, 17 to Purdue, and 3 to Michigan State last week. They've given up a total of 30 in 3 weeks, and their defense has played very, very well. This is a totally different offense. They haven't faced an offense like this, and I agree with you. I think there's a little bit of value with the over in the game. This is the game where Denard Robinson completed the miracle pass last year and beat Notre Dame, right? So. Yeah, so I mean, I do think, and that was a very high-scoring game. I think this one will be too.
A little luck of the Irish sounds good, especially when you're sitting at a blackjack table.
Yeah, exactly.
How about it? Total of 51. I personally think this one's going to exceed that total. I think we're going to see a little bit of a shootout. Ricky, I know you think it's a close series. Slight lean to Michigan here?
A slight lean to Michigan, and agree with you a little bit on the total, Brian.
All right, Ricky, a little luck of the Irish never hurts, especially when you're sitting at a blackjack table. High-profile game, national TV, Irish on a roll, making national news. Open 5.5, it's up to 6. Total on the game is 51. A slight lean here to Michigan plus the points. It has been historically a very close series, and we think these two teams know how to score. I know the defenses have been great to this point, but maybe the total's a little low because of how great Notre Dame played defensively against Michigan State. We're looking at the over, and we're looking at you from Las Vegas, from the South Point Casino. For Rick Herron, I'm Brian Blessing. Thanks for joining us on the Line Makers on Sporting News.